and beyond, anyone that you've been sharing these videos with, I really want to extend my gratitude to every one of you that's managed to last this long, that's still enthusiastic, that's still looking for something to relate to in these videos. And hopefully this last video, which is part of the nutrition and well-being weight management series, this is going to be a good roundup for you when it comes to what you're feeding your body and how you're balancing it and how you're achieving your weight goals. So I want to put it out there that I'm in no way just all about the strive and achieve. I don't want to give you toxic positivity. There is such a thing as making you feel guilty, making it feel even more unachievable because you don't live the kind of life that influencers, for instance, would live, or someone who's really active, really fit, really motivated, really goal setting constantly in their lives. This can be something that can be achieved by anyone, and it's finding your place in the whole thing. It's finding what works for you and making it work yourself for your unique circumstances. And we're going to look at all of the unique things that come together to determine whether you are going to lose the amount of weight and have the amount of health and wellness that your body deserves. So we're going to be using a SMART approach. A SMART approach is really a good way to tackle most things in life, and it's used quite a lot in a corporate environment, so sorry if I'm boring you here, but it definitely works when it comes to planning a weight loss program for yourself. So SMART actually stands for strategic, measurable, achievable, realistic, as I said, something that you can relate to and can be incorporated into your life and knows how to work around your obstacles and your challenges, and also a time-bound way of approaching it as well. So strategic, this is the way in which we're going to create our own strategy now for the coming weeks and how we are going to really increase our weight loss potential and start to see results. The strategy will be, first up, looking at all of the holistic methods that come together in determining how well you're going to be able to achieve these goals and how you're going to set your body up to be able to fully benefit from the weight loss measures that you are giving it, as it's all about the bodily systems and how they are dealing with all of the rest of the things in your body that definitely influence whether you're going to retain weight or you're going to shed weight, or whether you're going to be able to have movement in your life, or whether you're going to have the vitality, the energy, the brain function to make better choices. All of these little things come together to determine how well you're going to be resilient to get through the next few weeks in your weight loss program. Anything that I discuss in the next few sections of the video, you can take note of that if it applies to you, and this is really forming your own map to know what you need to tweak, what you need to prepare for, what you need to organise, which really gets you motivated, and you start to see in measurable results as well when you're taking all of these little changes into consideration and you're seeing some effects, whether it's subtle or it's quite apparent. Then you will be able to see the difference that it's making in your life. And by keeping a food diary and keeping a journal, or just noting on your food diary how you felt that day, what you noticed by certain hours, how you felt after certain meals, how much water you had, and being able to compare that to the changes that you're about to make, you will be able to see that you're beginning to level up. Something that's achievable for you is very important as well, because a lot of us, we tend to go fully out there where it's quite over the top what we're expecting from our results. So achievable in the way where it's not too much weight loss in too short a time, or expecting to have results when you're still leaning into some of these crutches, these habits that are not really helping on this journey. So it's being able to be realistic about that, hold yourself accountable, but at the same time know that your challenges have been real and it's time for you to approach these in a different way, a more refreshing way, in a more holistic manner. This not new version of you, it's still you, But we're going to replace those old habits and those things that have been holding us back, that have been imprinted on our subconscious for a long time. We're going to correct them. And a lot of it will be all of the work that I've talked about in the previous videos, a lot of mindset and mindfulness techniques that you're going to have to apply to this, but also the physical action that you're going to take. Take control of your everyday lifestyle, so your diet, the needs of your body, the need to realign and the need to rebalance. So first up, I wanted to talk to you about making your body more compatible for weight loss. So really we're going to be looking at this from the mainstream point of view of weight loss, but we're also going to look at it from a holistic point of view. The word holistic meaning whole, it doesn't mean alternative. It's looking at the whole of your being in order for you to gain the best that you can from weight loss in general or weight management. So making your body more compatible for weight loss, that's looking at holistic methods, looking at all of our bodily systems and the things that might hold us back from being able to shed the weight that we want, or also understanding what might be limiting your weight loss, and also to enable your full potential for your weight loss goals. I also want to put it out there that your body is intelligent. So I like to bring these examples in just to widen our perspective, and it's all about perception as well. Quite often I never really felt that things impacted me in words alone until it was put into a more kind of science background. So to give an example of why the body is intelligent, if you provide your body the environment which it needs to thrive, then it will thrive. And if you provide your body with the environment which it needs to be naturally well and naturally balanced, then that will also ripple onto your weight management. So one of the examples I like to use is about the cilia. So cilia is like hair-like structures basically that are lining your throat all the way down the respiratory system and into your lungs. And see it as like finger-like projections, almost like hairs, that are all part of these cells that come together, obviously stacking up to provide the tissue all down those tubes to your respiratory system. And those little kind of projections, hair-like projections, what they do is they're there for a reason. They're there to push mucus up. So they push it up so that we can eventually cough it out, or it comes up in our throat and we can get rid of it, obviously. So when you smoke, for instance, the body's obviously aware of this sensation coming in through the nose, through the throat and into the lungs. And it's hot, obviously. We know it's another topic about smoking damage, but obviously that is not a natural thing that humans have been used to. So the body's aware that something new has been happening here. And yeah, at first you'll find that when you smoke, you maybe want to cough more, you're creating more mucus. That's your body's way of trying to interact and sort of rebalance from that effect of smoke. But if it's consistent and it's regular, the body realises that this is going in, this smoke's coming down, more and more regular. We need to adapt. So the lining within your trachea and your lungs as well realises that it's best to adapt by removing the cilia, so the finger-like hair projections. I don't know why I've been doing this. I guess I'm trying to show you. It's always harder when you're not face-to-face with people, you know. I find that I'm having to find newer ways of presenting this information to you. So yeah, that's my crazy hand representing the cilia. These hairs are no longer there. So they're replaced with scar tissue, because I guess when the body weighs it up, what's better? Protecting the trachea, protecting the lining of our throat from the smoke and the heat and any damage, or having these hair-like, finger-like projections. So yeah, forms scar tissue. And what you find is when you give up smoking, many people complain of in the following weeks that you've got lots of coughing and you're bringing up a lot of stuff. That's because suddenly the body is aware that for a while you've not put that cigarette, that smoke has not been going down there, so it starts to revert back to its old forms of having these finger-like projections to move the mucus back up. So that's why you have like a clear out, because suddenly the cilia are there to move it on up again. So now that that has absolutely blown your brain, I want you to think about the fact that your body does adapt. So first up, we're going to just put it all into a nutshell for you so that you can have your own idea of what your ingredients are that are coming together that might be affecting your potential to shed weight, no matter how hard that you try. So it's about aligning the body and creating the environment for your body to intelligently adapt, and that will, of course, knock on to your ability to lose weight in a sustainable way. So the first thing I'm going to cover is inflammation. If you have inflammation within your body, there are various reasons why this might affect weight loss. So for one, inflammation is going to cause a protective effect on your body, and the way the body protects itself is that it would retain fluid, so the fluid encapsulates the inflammation, and you're also going to be very likely to have that inflammation within your gut, and most of the time the inflammation within your body actually stems from your gut and the inflammatory foods that you're taking in and the other environmental factors, and what you're absorbing through food, drink, your environment and your skincare, and your lungs. So yeah, inflammation needs to be something that's looked at and found a way to alleviate in order that you're going to gain the best from your weight loss program. So yeah, nutrient absorption levels can also be affected if you have inflammation within your gut, because obviously the gut lining is affected. You've also likely to have things like muscle ache, swollen joints. There might be signs of pain in the joints as well, conditions such as arthritis or joint osteo conditions as well. They're all signs that you have inflammation within the body. So it's always best to try and reduce this inflammation through your foods and naturally. So this is the magnet that I created for Ouija Wellbeing. It's available on the website and it gives you real easy access to keep on track with this. On one side it's got the inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods being those that create inflammation and mucus within the body, and that will then knock on to your nutrient absorption, how your body will gain from your foods, how your muscles will get rid of inflammation or retain it because you're adding more to the body. Also fluid retention, so you'll have things like bloat as well more commonly. So yeah, inflammatory foods on one side, and on the other side you've got the anti-inflammatory foods. So although we tend to look at the Eat Well plate and the balanced diet, I think it's really important that we work with this alongside of that so that you can begin to realise how many beige foods, it's all about beige foods really, as Sir Billy Connolly said. He liked to talk about beige people. Well, we've got a beige diet, especially in Scotland, the one that is normalised. And don't get me wrong, I grew up on Fray Bento's pies, super noodles and microchips, cheesy pasta, things like that, and I never thought twice about how that would affect my body and my mind and my overall well-being, and it definitely will contribute because your body is going into a different mode to deal with this inflammation. So you want to look at that, and you want to look at upping your anti-inflammatory. properties. So not only changing your diet and thinking about what you're ingesting, such as dairy, gluten, red meats, processed meats, all your sugary snacks, cakes, biscuits, and sweeteners come into that as well. You want to look at other ways which you can lower the inflammation in other natural forms. So you might want to add things like turmeric, not just through your diet, but in capsule form or ground form in supplements. And if you combine that with black pepper, I've covered that in my supplement video. There'll be a lot more on that if you want to explore some of the natural ways in which you can alleviate some of the everyday problems that you can have. But also, you want to look at things like all your greens, peppermint teas, lowering your risk of dehydration as well, because if you're dehydrated, then your inflammation will not be able to get flushed out of the system as well. So look at that for sure. That will definitely affect how you shed weight, and it might be that even though you're losing pounds, you might not necessarily feel it because you have fluid retention and you have bloat. The endocrine system works alongside your hunger response, your metabolism, your body's ability to retain fat and keep the fat reserves. So if your endocrine system is out of whack, then that is going to affect weight loss as well. So you're looking at things like thyroid disorders for sure. So if you have obviously a slower metabolism and your thyroid is imbalanced, then it can be quite difficult to move past that because of that medical imbalance. So not only do you want to maybe get that in check, but even if it's at a discrete level and it's not something that a GP would diagnose as such, you want to make sure that your endocrine system is as balanced as possible. So thyroid disorders, menopause, perimenopause, all of these will dictate what levels of hormone that your body will secrete and whether they're balanced or not. And just to give you some examples, so if you have hypothyroidism, then your metabolism will be slower. You will retain probably more weight. It's the same with menopausal hormones. So you might find that it's less easy to shed weight as well when you're going through perimenopause or menopause, which is why it's even more important to try your best to balance your body out and support it through the changes. So you've got hormonal adapting drugs as well, such as the combined pill, any sort of hormonal change in pill, such as there's some on the market which might lower estrogen levels for various reasons. People who are suffering from endometriosis or bad cycles, and yeah, the hormonal adapting drugs can also have an effect on the body, because in some ways they could be tricking the body into either thinking that it's pregnant, so it has to hold on to fat reserves and it has to get the environment ready to hold a baby. And you've also got the opposite. You've got those hormonal adapting drugs which might trick your body into thinking that you're in the menopause. So with all of these factors, it's something that you want to consider and you want to support that. So you might want to look at things like adaptogen herbs, which I discussed in the supplement video as well, and you can get some ideas on those. And you also want to look at the fact that sleep issues can come into that category as well. If you don't have enough of melatonin being produced, melatonin's obviously like there's many precursors to melatonin. So if you've got low estrogen, for instance, then your body might not be creating as much melatonin as what it did before. And if you don't have sufficient melatonin, then you won't get sufficient sleep. It might harbour your ability to fall asleep or have undisturbed sleep. And in studies, it's shown that those who are lacking in sleep are more likely to have hormonal imbalances, but also problems in a weight loss journey. So you want to look at sorting out your sleep hormones, sorting out supporting any changes that your body's going through, whether that's through drugs, whether that's through natural cycles, thyroid disorders. But Sorting that root issue will also have a knock-on effect into how much you're able to gain out of a weight loss program. Cortisol levels are something that's hugely underestimated in our culture. We kind of glorified that whole hustle, that whole be stretched as much as you can in your life, busy, fight it, no time for actually looking at root causes and adapting your life. It's more like, right, I'm too busy, I've not got enough energy, I need sugar, I need caffeine, and I need to be juggling all these things. So we go for the convenience over the evaluation of our life. The best thing to do would be obviously looking at the areas of your life that you need to shed or you need to spend less time or energy on. Some of that can be cutting out scenarios, people, situations, habits that are no longer serving you good purpose. Because if you get out of those ways, then you'll have less of that cortisol effect pumping around your body. And when we get into that cortisol mode, we are more likely to be in fight or flight permanently, unless we break that cycle. So I spoke about the adrenal response. When you're tapping into adrenaline constantly or consistently or on a regular basis, your body realizes it's getting this fear-inducing behavior happening, this trigger and this stress response. So in order to protect itself, it stays in that kind of amber alert. It's almost like it's on edge, but it's ready and it's reactive at any point. And if we're in that mode, that makes things so much harder for us as well, because we want to alleviate that feeling of stress. So we're tending to lean into habits that aren't really going to do us good. Stress relief habits like comfort eating, using food as comfort, using food as a soother, and also food as a control, which we discussed in a previous video about disordered eating. If you feel like you're not fully in control of your life, if it's overwhelming, if there's too much of a stress response going on, many people turn to disordered eating as a way of feeling that they do have control of at least something in their life, which of course is a real ineffective way to manage your weight and comes with a whole heap of issues. So you want to get yourself out of the fight or flight mode, look at your life, evaluate where those stress triggers come from. Some might not be avoidable as such, but certainly we can choose the way in which we respond to those situations, and looking at ways in which we can naturally lower the cortisol. So coming off alcohol, cigarettes definitely increase the cortisol levels in your body. So that's something that you would definitely want to look at if you're looking to shed weight as well. And it sounds like it's not related, but hopefully these videos are showing you the ripple effect of some things that we would class as minor in our life that are actually having a major impact. So if you're able to recognise some of the ways in which you are increasing the cortisol from what you put in your body, so cigarettes, alcohol, recreational drugs, that whole dopamine high and then the crash afterwards, also looking at sugars, because sugar does encourage that kind of adrenaline response as well, and finding ways not just in mindset and through diet, but through other things that you might not have explored before. So you're looking at ways to break subconscious cycles, meditation. But if that's something that you feel you're not ready for completely, then you can have guided meditations, which I find quite helpful. You can find a lot of them on Spotify, on YouTube, but also frequency music. Just having something on that causes a brain response depending on the tone that it's emitting in the background. You can get some that can uplift you, some that are good for reducing stress, reducing worry, negative thoughts patterns. And if they don't have any lyrics as such or any singing, then it has a calming effect on the body as well. Looking at the vagus nerve, so the vagus nerve is something that is directly connected to the brain, and it travels down the trachea, the esophagus, into the stomach. So you can imagine when we are stressed, most of us have this stomach response, and many people can feel like it's IBS as well. And a lot of that is because our vagus nerve has gone out of whack. And a lot of that can be to do with not just the situations in our life and the patterns and the way that we're responding to those stress triggers, but also things like breathing and not taking that time to have a breath, or recognizing that you've got shallow breathing rather than through the diaphragm, and releasing anything that no longer serves your purpose, which we discussed in previous videos as well, all about observing, not absorbing, and all about pause, breathe before you respond. And they can really help to reduce cortisol levels naturally as well. If you do exercises for your vagus nerve, which are breathing exercises, and just checking in with yourself. I'm going to be putting up a body scan technique in the next series, which is all about stress management. So I'm going to do a few guided body meditations with you. Some of them will be about realigning energy centers in our body, realigning our thoughts, but also have an effect on the body, some breathing techniques and a body scan. So if you can check in with yourself as well, are you clenching your stomach? Are you holding your chest tight? Are you breathing shallow? All of this helps to regulate your hormones and reduce the cortisol in your body. You can also look at adaptogen herbs again, like I had mentioned before in the previous videos, ways in which you can help to gently reduce that adrenal response, so the pressure on the kidney, because the adrenal gland sits above the kidney. So quite often if your adrenal gland is overworked, you do find that your kidneys are not filtering as well, and that adds to your fatigue, that adds to your feeling of leaning on sugars, leaning on stress to get through. So it's like a catch-22, and once we are able to recognise it and break that cycle, then you will come on leaps and bounds. The next thing would be your digestive disruption. So if you are trying a weight loss program, you're doing your best, you're looking at your diet, your inflammatory foods, your calorific intake, you're getting movement in your life, you're having a good mindset. If we've got digestive disruption still going on, that will play a part in reducing the amount of benefits you're going to have from that program. So first of all, dehydration. If you're not well hydrated, then there can be several things that can come as a ripple effect from that. So for one, it's going to make sure that your inflammation is retained within your body. It's going to not help your brain function. So your choices that you're making throughout your day, it's not going to be as easy for you to make those healthier choices, because if you're feeling tired, sluggish, it can make you feel less able to be strong enough to say no to certain things, if that makes sense. Also, dehydration can mimic hunger. So you might feel that you're hungry and you're actually taking in more food, or food-like substances, as Dr. Eamon likes to call it. Some foods aren't actually food anymore, they're just more chemical and fillers than anything else. But we're going to lean into wanting to eat more as well. So really looking at the amount of water that you're having in a day, 1.5 litres up to 2 litres. You don't want to go any more, because your electrolytes can be affected if you have too much water. So be mindful of increasing your water intake, but don't go overboard, because you'll have your magnesium, your sodium, your potassium and your calcium levels might be affected as well. But looking at that as maybe a source of why you're feeling fatigued, why you've got water retention. Because the mad thing is, you would think you've got water retention because there's too much water in your body. Body, being intelligent again, realises it's not got a lot of water coming in, so it's going to retain what it can. So yeah, dehydration, please think of that, and you'll be able to monitor it as well, along with your food diary, and seeing if you're getting enough liquids in your day. You want to rebalance the gut, especially, as I'd said in previous videos, there's many factors which can play a part in why your gut microbe levels will be out of whack. So best ways to do this is obviously through your diet, reducing those things that are going to heavily be factors in why your gut bacteria are going to be out of whack. So obviously your inflammatory foods are not going to help, but the main things that you want to look at, which are influencing the bacteria levels in your gut: sugar is what the bad bacteria in your system thrives on. So if you're feeding that bad bacteria sugar, it's going to multiply and it's going to overrun your good bacteria. You want to look at things like alcohol as well. Alcohol, even if you don't feel that you have quite a lot of it, whether it's small and regular or it's binge drinking, the alcohol actually kills your good gut bacteria quite actively. So again, your bad bacteria can take over more. And when you've got bad bacteria taking over, you're not going to get the most out of your food, and your immune system is going to be so poor. You need the good gut bacteria to have a good immune response, but also to enable that you don't have any gut imbalances, such as more likely to be having a response to certain foods that you think that you're sensitive to, when it's actually the inflammation or the bad bacteria in your gut that's having that response. So you can rebalance your gut by having a course of probiotics or being on that more long term. So you can start off looking at the supplement video, which I posted earlier, if you want to get an insight into how to start on probiotics and what to look for in the pack contents. You want to look at your food group dependencies, obviously, because if you're heavily leaning on sugar, as I said, your gut is not going to get a chance to rebalance. You're going to find ways in which you can withdraw yourself from sugar. It ain't easy for most people, but having replacements and having less sugar items in the house to make it less tempting, and having the replacements there and available, so your savoury stuff like nuts, I like to go for more savoury options, olives as well, nuts, more of your dips that are healthier like hummus, and dipping with things like carrots and celery. That doesn't maybe sound tempting, but honestly, if you can go through maybe 2 or 3 weeks of lowering your sugar intake or reducing it really, really savagely, then you'll find once you're past that 2 or 3 week period, and especially if you've been having probiotics and doing your best to realign your gut, you'll find that you don't have that same craving. Many people think that they can't live without sugar in their life, but it's just that trickery. It's not really your brain, it's the bacteria telling you that it needs that sugar. So sugar addiction is real, and we are really underestimating it. It's probably a pandemic for sure. Just to give you an insight as well to how addictive sugar is, when they done experiments in a laboratory setting, they gave mice over a period of a few weeks their normal diet plus sugar, and then they changed the sugar to cocaine. I know it's quite brutal, isn't it? Not great for me to learn this being vegan, but you know, in some ways, if it helps to raise people's awareness and consciousness, and then we've got positive change, then I guess that's the flip side. But yeah, so the mice were given sugar for a few weeks alongside their normal diet, and then after a few weeks they changed sugar to cocaine. So then they were on cocaine for a few weeks, and at the end of that they then gave them the choice. So in the cages they had sugar or they had cocaine, and the mice went for the sugar rather than the cocaine. So the conclusion from that experiment was that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And when we say it that way, we think, wow, how much have we normalised giving sugary treats to children? We're actually actively getting them into a cycle where they're going to find that so difficult to undo. More difficult, it seems, perhaps, than cocaine. So that experiment would lead you to believe. When you're looking at other factors that might come into play here, which makes it feel difficult to lose weight, you've got your time management factor for sure. Some people feel that food and cooking is their last priority. They're just so busy. And the other would be choice fatigue. We've got so much information now, so much to think about, and many of the advice that's put out there can contradict. So it can get frustrating, and it can make people feel almost like they want to retract from it all because it's too much, it's too overwhelming. So overwhelm in general in life can come into play there. So you feeling overwhelmed, and then the areas that you make sacrifices in are actually those areas that should be top priority. So your health and your well-being is your top priority, but quite often we put that to the bottom of the list. If you are caring for other people especially, you need to make sure your priority is yourself so that you can give to others. And if you're prioritising your health and wellness ahead of everything else, no matter what's going on, you can always find little ways, and a lot of it is about organisation and preparation. So you're looking at prioritising, first of all, looking at the areas in your life that you're giving time and attention to and energy to that you might not necessarily realise add up to minutes or hours. And you want to take that back. So especially when I talked about social media and other stress-inducing activities, you want to cut back on a lot of that, and instead you would have the time to be able to facilitate things like meal prepping, organising your groceries better and having a shopping list. Batch cooking is definitely something that you want to consider if you're busy. When you do have time, you can cook things in big quantities and put it in the freezer. And of course, that might sound like it's been convenient, but at least it's been home cooked and it's been prepared with mindfulness and good intention. Everything that you've prepped, everything that is on that plate is going to be probable for nourishing your body better and being balanced because you've taken time to think about it, prep it, cook it and batch it ready for those busy times. So that really helps for when you are really tired or you've had these unexpected things come up in your day or your week and you're feeling stretched, and instead of leaning into the foods that are really not going to help you on your journey, you're able to pick up something that you prepared on a good day when you had more time. You want to look at keeping it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself and do too many things too quickly. You want to make sure that you relate to some of the content that I've given you and decide which areas that you want to work on first. Bit by bit, it can be best to have a slow process, because if you're trying everything all at once, it can be too much on the body or too much on your mind. And if you're not quite in the space to be present and be tolerant, it's easy then to fall back into old habits. So slow changes and steady is best. We're looking at a lifestyle change rather than just a quick diet program. You want to maybe do more things that will help increase your chances of losing weight over time, maybe for a 12-week period. But then you want to start looking ahead and having something in place that is permanent for yourself, not to feel that every now and then you have to go on these diets and it's just naturally sustaining a good weight after that. Affordability. So I'm not going to gloss over the fact that we're going through harder times, cost of living has increased, and many of us are having to cut back on things. But I also want to balance that out with a cultural problem as well, and that would be that many of us feel that we can't afford to be healthier, but a lot of our income could be going to areas that, of course, might be luxury, but they might also add to our confidence. But in many ways, there's little things that's all adding up, like your cafe coffees daily, subscriptions. You're looking at maybe ways in which you're leaning on some aesthetic ways to make you feel better, and that all adds up as well, when really you're going to weigh this up and find that once your wellness is sorted and is more stabilized and your body is more feeling a lot of vitality, and you're feeling light and you're feeling the best weight possible within your abilities, then that is going to cause a huge effect. You're going to have a feeling of confidence that you won't need to lean on these materialisms as much. Finding new strategies so that your financial side of things is much more in check and you're able to afford some of what you feel you need money to be healthy for. So I said feel that you need money to be healthy for. Of course, some people are on very, very limited incomes and they feel that all the healthy food is the expensive stuff. If you're going in with a certain perspective, that could certainly be perceived that way. But we have to balance it out with the fact that many of the world's poorest countries survive on beans, pulses, lentils, rice, vegetables. So from that perspective, it's just to give you a little insight. It's mostly about getting out of that frame of mind that we need something that's convenient, or something that is organic, or the packet healthy stuff is going to obviously appear as expensive. But when you're looking at your basics, and especially in batch form, you can get maybe 6 meals out of a batch thing that you're cooking, then you can start to understand why many of this could be much less than what you expect, especially if you're planning it and you're organised about it. But much of this as well is down to judging food by our taste rather than our nourishment. So many of us are now eating to taste rather than eating to nourish. Of course, food has to be enjoyed. It's part of the little simple things in our life that we can enjoy. But if we have gotten into a frame of mind where that's all that we see food as, that pleasure-seeking activity, then it's going to be harder for you to see that you can definitely make healthier eating work on a lower budget. There will be ways in which you can find some ideas. I'm going to obviously give you some as well, and how that I do this from home, and just to give you some inspiration to what you might want to replace some of your meals with, to give you healthier fats, less sugars, less convenience foods, definitely more anti-inflammatory foods, and hopefully it will inspire you. If you are taking in more energy from your foods than what you're burning, then your weight is going to increase. If you are burning more energy than the amount that you're taking in through your foods, then you will lose weight. And if you are balancing the amount of energy that you're taking in from your foods with the amount of exercise and movement and activity that you do on a daily basis, that means that you won't be burning too many calories. It will all be very much equal. So what you eat is exactly what you need on a daily basis for energy. So yeah, it's looking at your basic metabolic rate, and that is really the amount that you require based on your circumstances. So there's ways of finding this out first of all, and it's really useful to get this BMR calculated, and I will attach a link, so it'll be in the bio of this video, and I will talk you through just how this can look as well. So I'll give you an example up on the screen of how this can look. So there's different things that will affect the basic metabolic rate, and that is your age, that is your biological gender, and that is the amount of activity that you have in your day. And some people word this differently. It can be worded as the amount of activity in your day, your performance levels, or your exercise levels. It's all the same thing. So your basic metabolic rate is what your body needs on an everyday basis just to provide the basic functioning. So that is obviously the role of your digestive system, how your brain functions, how much energy you are going to burn through all of those cellular activities, and the kidney filtering, the liver filtering, and your basic metabolic rate is the amount of energy that you require in calorific value in order for that basic everyday function to go well. Once you add your activity level onto that, you will know if you need to up your calorific intake as well. So calculating your BMR first of all is useful because you can see what you need on a basic level, and then you can obviously work out what kind of activity level you're at if you want to understand how many calories then you would need to have sufficient energy for those activity levels. If you are looking at weight loss, then it's best to work everything together in synergy. So you're looking at lowering the amount of energy intake from your food without depleting your nutrients, without sacrificing nourishment, because your body has essential needs, and we've spoken about that on various videos. So it's really important that the content and the quality of what you're eating is still top level and it's providing your body with everything you need, because otherwise you're going to be malfunctioning. And if that doesn't really mean much to you, then from an aesthetic point of view, it's going to affect your skin, your hair, your nails, your eye health, your vitality, how your body reduces inflammation, and that will obviously contribute to bloat if you have inflammation still lingering around. So you can see that just trying to get skinny isn't an effective way of managing weight, because you might achieve that desired weight, but if you don't appear vibrant and if you're lacking those daily essentials, then you'll find that you will have all sorts of problems, which I've spoken about in other videos. So if your exercise is limited, then you can find other movement methods, and that can be someone who is housebound. We can find ways in which you can still achieve weight loss. And those who need low impact activity, maybe some people don't have a good stamina built up for various reasons, their health has maybe gotten in the way. There's all sorts of circumstances which this is still achievable in. So we can find movement practice or low impact activity, or if you're one that likes to feel that you're really doing something good for your body and you're fit and you're able, then obviously increasing cardio and doing more weight resistance exercise is going to be really beneficial for you. And those who are feeling like they're severely limited because of health conditions, and perhaps they're more sedentary, they're more housebound, they're more bedbound, then if given the choice between, you only had two choices here when you're going to lose weight, and one is, look, we're going to keep your diet the same, but we're going to increase your exercise, or we're going to not allow you to exercise, but we're going to change your diet, then controversial subject, I know, but I would go for diet alone. Your diet alone can make a huge impact on your body functions and your overall health. Obviously, exercise and getting the body moving is really beneficial for the bodily systems as well. You don't want to ignore that, but I want to put it out there to those that are feeling that they're really being limited by the amount that they can do physically. Please do not give up hope. I've been there myself. I've had periods of being practically housebound for up to a year, and I know that with the right information, with the right attitude, and with the right actions and implementations in your life, you can achieve that also. So how does body mass index work? This is really something that you're going to look at as a basic guideline. First of all, I want to put that out there because this has been a way which came about where we wanted to find our ways of being able to tell based on weight, based on height, based on your sex. This would determine where you sit on that chart. So what it doesn't take into account is muscle mass, and that can be quite important when it comes to certain people. So those who have done weight training, those who have naturally well developed muscle tissue, then muscle does weigh in as well there. Also, you have people who are naturally heavier bones, and I know we've all heard of that, but I have to put it out there that this is something that does have to be validated in some people. I know one person, for instance, who really was underweight and would have been in that underweight category, fairly malnourished, but on the BMI chart, they appeared normal, and their GP had stated that this might be something that ran in their family, and had it ran through their bloodlines, were there any other people in their family that were known to have had heavy bones, and that was really valid, and that was something that seemed to run within the males in that family. So that's another thing that you have to take into account. This is a loose guideline for you, but it certainly can be useful when it's coming to where to pitch yourself, but just weighing in there that it doesn't take your unique circumstances into account. And there's many things that can really weigh in, excuse the pun, but weigh in on what determines those digits on a scale. And it can be things like water retention, inflammation, because inflammation within the body will usually come with fluid retention. Also, where your hormones are at that particular time that you're weighing yourself, because especially with females, their hormone alignment can determine when they're going to retain weight more. What stage of their cycle, for instance, will determine how much fluid that they have. So again, taking that into account whenever you are monitoring your weight. And I've always thought that the best way to monitor weight, not just taking these measurements into account, you're measuring your actual statistics, so your waist, your hips, your chest, but also looking at things like your what you notice in your clothing. What's become looser? Do you have to take your belt up a notch? Do you feel better? Is your energy feeling more abundant? Are you noticing little things in your daily life? Are you noticing changes in your skin? Are you noticing changes in your digestive activity? All of this are little indications that you're doing good for your body and should really be encouraging for you to keep going with your strategy. It's really important that, that healing work is done alongside our weight management work. And that can include forgiving your body. Forgiving your body for times that we feel it's let us down, or the relationship that we have with it now. Maybe we're frustrated with it. It's doing things, or it's forming shapes that we didn't expect. That energy has to shift, and it's so important because I have spoken to those who have gone through surgery for weight loss, such as gastric bypasses, and they had a lot of emotional work to do, because although they had lost that weight through surgery, within them they still felt like that insecure, overweight person, and all of the experiences that went along with that has to be cleansed. We have to find our ways to work alongside our inner child, because much of this can come from childhood, these expectations that we put on ourselves, and we have to work with that voice, recognize it and realign it because it no longer applies to us. But we also have to look at ways in which to increase our confidence, face small fears, all alongside trying to lose weight. That is the best guaranteed way for you to gain the most out of this. And I hope that you're going to follow me, because I'm going to show you now some ways in which you can identify all of the factors that are contributing towards you not achieving your weight loss goals, how we can tweak them, and how we can make your body thrive and be at its full potential for hitting those weight loss goals, and hitting them soon, but also making them sustainable. because quick fixes are been and gone. We're done with that. Most of you, I can imagine, that are listening to this have been there. We've tried crash dieting, we've been part of clubs, we've gone to the gym, we've tried that go, 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 get it attitude. That's not sustainable. We're looking for ways to recognise when there's a time and a place for that attitude, but it also has to coincide with your lifestyle and your personality